Hello. I think it's starting.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
okay. Are you guys
Hello.
all set? Are you good? Get logged in?
I think we're getting there. So,
Okay.
is this Corinne?
Um, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you fighting a little cold there?
Yeah, I was out sick all week, so I sound really awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm feeling better today than I have been for most of the week and weekend, but yeah, Shadine and I are actually gonna tag team this one because I have a meeting at 11:30 and she has a meeting until 11. So yeah. Oh,
All right.
this happened. Okay.
I'm not gonna. Are you gonna go ahead and grab the screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna grab it.
Okay. So Jed's gonna put his info up. I'm showing it. Are you showing it okay there, Corinne?
Yep, and I think you actually started the webinar, so everyone can see it and hear us.
Oh, good.
I did. I'm sorry. So
Okay.
it said press star one, so I did.
Yep. So, folks, if you're on, it looks like we have a few people listening. Just bear with us as Jed and Brad get set up, and then we'll kind of kick off the webinar.
Yes, in 10 minutes. Are we allowed to let everybody talk in some fashion until then, or are we limited?
We're limited because we're logged in as a webinar, and so they can't talk; they can only chat. So, folks, if you're on, you can go ahead and you can send a chat or a question, and you can let us know that you can hear us all right. But if you want to, if you have some preemptive questions for Brad and Jed about their presentation or some topics that you're hoping they'll cover, I think now would be a great time for you all to submit those, and then Brad and Jed can look at those as they start and go through their presentation.
Another thing that might be helpful would just be if you are willing and able to put in the chat box a little bit about yourself, maybe just name, institution, and role. So that way we have a better idea of what our audience looks like. We don't have any sort of official polling in our presentation, and we'll go through this again in about 10 minutes since we started a little earlier. So I think we are good. We'd love to hear some of that stuff from y'all.
And if there's multiple people in the room, give us a sense of who all is there. That would be helpful as well as we're working our way through the presentation. We'll share this as well, but we would love to have people at one portion of our presentation really engage with us. And so if you've got a nice big screen that you can be using, that people can see, we want people to really think through some of these things and give some feedback and some thought on some of the things that we had to evaluate and make some changes on our campus. And we'd love to have you be engaged in sending us some feedback via the chat feature. So when we get to that, we'll share a little bit more, but if that helps in people getting prepared for the webinar, we'd love to do that.
You can also use the questions feature, and then that'll pop up, and we can respond to that. So if you don't want to send it to everybody, you can send the questions feature, and we can see that as well.
So, Corinne, how is life in Montana?
It's good. It's been pretty snowy and cold, but it's good.
We haven't had much of the snow, but we sure have the cold. So we've been in single digits and got up to a balmy 23 degrees yesterday.
Whoa, yeah, it's supposed to be 7 today.
That's your high?
High is 7. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How much snow do you have?
We don't have that much on the ground right now because it's been so cold, but we got a couple inches over the weekend, and we're supposed to get more this week, I think.
Yeah. Thankfully, our mountains are getting some good snow, which we always like to have. But I'm one that if it's going to snow here, I want it to just snow. Give me 6 inches to a foot, and let's enjoy a little bit of moisture.
Yeah,
Don't
we had like
tease me.
an eighth of an inch this morning. It was sort of pointless.
Nina, thank you for writing in. So we're glad to have you on the call.
Like you're working on your radio DJ. Like, Nina, thank you so much for dialing in.
Well, we can go back and forth and be radio DJs here. So apparently the University of New Mexico is having a snow day today. How lucky are you? Maybe.
Dean, are you there?
Yes, but I can't talk to you.
can hear you.
You can hear me?
Huh. It work? Everyone
all-
can hear you.
Everybody
Sorry.
can hear me.
Good morning, Shady.
Good morning. I have no idea how this is working on my computer.
What do you mean? Everyone can hear you, so.
I know, what I'm saying is like I haven't called in. I've just logged on so I can watch it through my speakers. So that's why I'm confused.
Oh, yeah, then on your computer.
I what?
Have a mic?
On my computer. This is scary. Okay, I just made myself a organizer on here too, so hopefully then that.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we've had some more folks join us. So if you're joining us, that we're getting settled and waiting for other folks to log on, we'll kick off the webinar.
So is there a way that I can mute myself once it gets started?
Yeah, I mean, I can mute you.
Oh, it looks like
There you go.
I figured out.
Perfect.
So I'm going to mute myself now because you're going to launch, right?
Yep, I can launch and then I'll log out.
Perfect.
So good morning, everyone. Again, this is Jed Cummins coming to you from the University of Northern Colorado. We started errantly, just a little bit early, so some of you may have already heard this information, but we are excited to be presenting to you, and we'll get started here in just a few moments. But we also wanted folks to be familiar with some of the interactive features of GoToWebinar, and I believe either Corinne or Shadeen may explain a little bit more. But while we have a fairly captive audience before we get started, just wanted to familiarize folks with the questions portion of GoToWebinar. You are welcome to ask things privately right there if you have something very specific that you wanted to send that just Brad, myself, and the AIMHO 365 organizers, Shady and Corinne, could see. If you want to do something a little bit more publicly or just throw things out there, there's also a chat feature, and you are welcome to use that, and everyone should be able to see that. We will hopefully have you all be using the chat feature a little bit later in the webinar. We have what we hope to be a little bit of an interactive section regarding some renovations and redesigns, and want to get folks' opinions on things that they're noticing that they would change in certain instances. So please familiarize yourself with those, and if you have any issues or questions, feel free to throw them out there in whatever either the chat or the question feature of GoToWebinar. The other thing that we've asked is if you are willing and able, feel free to go to the chat feature and give out some information about yourself. If you are just solo here on the webinar today, feel free to throw that out there. And Shady or Corinne, I'm not sure if you need to do something on your end to enable that chat feature. Nina, I think from UNM is saying that she is unable to see it.
Yeah, we can kind of briefly walk through it as folks are getting logged in, but it should appear on that panel that popped up when you logged into GoToWebinar. If you can't use the chat feature, that's okay. You can still use the questions feature, and we can make sure to repeat the question or have Brad and Jed repeat the question out loud to the group so that we can discuss it and they can address it as a group. But the chat feature should be like just at the bottom of that panel that popped up when you logged in. It's kind of hidden. It doesn't necessarily stand out right away, but it should be there for folks.
And I think since our time shows is after 11, we are ready to get started. So do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, sounds great. So I know folks are still getting logged in, but we are going to go ahead and get started. And then if you have questions along the way, again, we can kind of talk through the questions in the chat feature. But welcome to the AIMHO 365 webinar. This is called Engaging Staff and Facility Excellence. My name is Corinne Fagenstrom, and I'm one of the chairs of the AIMHO 365 committee. Just a big thank you to Brad and Jed for being willing to share this information as a webinar. And for those of you out there listening, we're always looking for more webinars. So if you are interested in presenting a webinar on some cool things that are happening on your campus, or really just about things that you've learned along your journey, we'd be happy to chat with you more. You can reach out to Shadeen or I. Our email addresses are on the aimho.org website. So this webinar should last about 45 to 50 minutes. I believe Brad and Jed have saved time not only in the end, but in the middle of their presentation for some questions, and are always willing to talk offline as well. We'll be taking questions during the presentation, and so many of you have found the questions feature. But if you want to go ahead and let us know that you can hear us, and then let us know where you're coming in from, so your institution, if you can give us an idea of your position and maybe your role with facilities, I think that will help Brad and Jed as they go through their presentation. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So they also invited you to use the chat feature. The chat can be sent to all folks, or it can be just sent privately to the organizer, so you can choose which one you would like to utilize. And then feel free to tweet along. We have hashtag AIMHO, and you can tag us at AIMHO, and that will kind of help us promote our social media presence as well. This webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube page at the end, so you can always check it out later with your staff or share it with folks that weren't able to attend. Just please be checking back for more webinars. We try to have webinars every month. We have another one coming up in March that we'd love to have you join us for. And then at the end of the webinar, when it closes, you'll have an opportunity to give us some feedback. And so we would ask that you take that short survey and let us know what we can do better to enhance this service. So again, a huge thank you to Brad and Jed, and I'm going to turn it over to them to lead us through the presentation.
Well, perfect. So this is Jed Cummins again, coming from the University of Northern Colorado. We'll do a more full introduction here in a minute, but thank you for attending our webinar, again, Engaging Hall Staff in Facility Excellence. So we have just a few learning outcomes today, and I believe in addition to this being uploaded onto YouTube, we'd be happy to share the PDF of our presentation with anybody who might be interested. And I think both Brad and I's contact information is out there in about a dozen different ways on the AIMHO website. So feel free to reach out to us in any way, shape, or form. And we'd love to talk a little bit more. We really have a passion for facilities and really making our housing look the best that it can. So hopefully that will come out in this presentation. So a few learning outcomes, would love for folks to review those, and from there we will take just a brief glance.
I also want to add just one other feature here too. One of the things that I've heard so many times is people are trying to round out their experience, and this is an area that a lot of folks typically don't have a very strong experience, but there's ways that you can get it on any campus. And so that's really a little piece of what we're going to focus on today, because we want you to walk away from this to say, I have some ideas of how I can strengthen that I can speak to my facilities abilities whenever I'm looking at that next level position. And so that's a piece that we're hoping that you'll be able to take away here. So be prepared, keep engaged here. A little later here, we'll have you chime in and shoot us some quick little notes back from things that you see with whoever's in the room with you. We're thrilled to see that we've got a whole bunch of people in one room at the University of Utah. So we're glad to have you with us.
So just a brief schedule, just to kind of give you an idea of how the program is broken up. We'll share a little bit about UNC and our facilities, and then we'll spend about half of our time talking a little bit about tips for frontline staff and their supervisors to foster that facility excellence environment within their residential facilities. And then our more interactive feature or section of our presentation will be about how would you redesign it. We'll go through a variety of types of areas in our halls and ask for chats or questions just to throw out some additional things that you all noticed. We would love to have that information. And then we've saved a little time at the end for buffer, as well as any questions that y'all may have for us. So again, I'm Jed Cummins. I currently serve as our Assistant Director of Housing Services at the University of Northern Colorado. I've been in a housing operations, housing facilities type of role, both as a grad student and now full-time for about 6 years. And if you'd also like to tag me in any Twitter questions or traffic, my username is @Linux.
And I'm Brad Shade, and I've been in the field for a long time, so we stopped counting at 25 years. But I have grown a lot over the years, and I learned by just asking a lot of questions as well. And so I've been in what we call housing services here, and I've been in housing operations facility type of roles for a long time. But I came up through the ranks as an RA, an assistant hall director, a hall director. I did it all, so I've kind of had both sides of the house, which has been enormously beneficial. Both Jed and I have done roles on both sides of the house here, and so it's been very beneficial for us. As we say, we know what an RA deals with at night. We understand what a hall director is going to deal with. We understand those pieces and pulls, and people are still as students in a lot of those roles. So we have a little greater understanding than some people in these positions. So with that, we're going to jump in. We're going to talk a little bit about our story here, and the picture on your page there is showing a nice aerial view of our campus and a little bit of our fine city of Greeley when it's sunny. And then this is a picture of what it could look like now. We don't have that much snow right now, but it's something that we have a pretty nice campus here, and we'll tell you just a little bit about it here. We've got just under 13,000 students here and 3,500 beds, and so it's not a huge operation, but not a small one. And we've got a little over 1 million square feet that we try to take care of between all of our facilities. You'll also notice on that third bullet there, we also have 10 houses, as the university has acquired homes. A lot of institutions deal with that. We actually are about to get another one back here that we had given away at one point. We also have a retreat center that's up in Estes Park that we manage, and it's a little slice of heaven that we really enjoy with 80 acres up in Estes Park. And then you can read through the staffing that we have down below here, and we're going to keep on trucking here. So one of the things that we really wanted to do today is talk about some tips for frontline staff and supervisors and how you can navigate your everyday work life. So let's jump right into this. So one of the things that I highly encourage is to have something of a walkthrough of your facility. And I would say this has to happen weekly. Does it always have to happen on Monday morning or whatnot? Not necessarily. I think it's good for you to get out at different times. But this is a piece where we love to have people who are paying attention to the details. So some of the details that we see here, we're talking about fire safety equipment. And especially like fire extinguishers, is everything in the range where it should be? Making sure that your closets are closed that should be closed. Closets are locked that should be locked. Making sure that there's no ability for people to get into places and spaces that they should not. And then we'll talk a little bit later here about facilities improvement proposals and how you can affect change in your residence hall or in that residence hall environment. The walkthrough as well, we encourage you to take a look at your common areas and really have a plan for how things are going to be laid out. We've drawn up this Visio drawing on the right-hand side here is something we've done for every single public space that we have. So you can say, all right, all that furniture is movable, and tomorrow morning we want to have it look just like this so that people are used to a particular layout, but it's all flexible. But we want you to know how to reset it, and you can, the hall staff help us a lot here by trying to get it close. We'll get it the rest of the way. Usually it's custodians who are giving it the final push to get things back in place. But anyway, that's one of those tools that we have really enjoyed that has been super helpful to us. Taking a look at your vending equipment, make sure that it's operating the way it should. On some campuses, that's actually part of the housing function. On a lot of campuses, it's not. But in our view, I don't want a vending machine out there that doesn't work and doesn't work well. We had one just this last fall that was just making this horrible noise. And we said, okay, we're unplugging it. I'm not going to do that. You need to get this fixed immediately because I need this to be a quiet study space here or living space. So keep up with those sort of things. Desk equipment. We offer a number of things, and most campuses do, for cleaning equipment. And that's something that we need to make sure that cleaning equipment is kept up to snuff. And so that's partially just communication. On our campus, our custodians do a lot of that cleaning out of vacuums and restocking of the supplies that students are going to run out of. But there needs to be a routine to that. There needs to be some regularity in making sure that everything is kept up to date and you have everything that students need to function. We bring in extra cleaning supplies at closing. We take out the extra dollies and carts and so forth after closing. So having a plan for all those things so that you can say, I should expect that I'm going to have X amount of carts to navigate a move-in process. And then the last one there is work orders and work order requests. You're going to notice things, and there's pieces and parts that are going to break, and you're going to have that drinking fountain that's going to be dripping. And we want to make sure on our campus that doesn't drip any longer than it has to. And one drip is too many. That's something where if it's not sealed up the way it should be, it's sending a message about what's important to us. And so we on our campus have said if something hasn't been fixed in a reasonable amount of time, we want it turned in. And so we're expecting that people will call us back on those things. You want to add anything on that?
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
So another thing that we have started to do here at UNC is to develop a periodic work order audit process. So making sure that our staff at a variety of levels, whether it's our hall staff, whether it's our custodial ones, the folks that are out cleaning the buildings every day, are aware of open work orders in their facilities, as well as open work orders that may be assigned to them for our staff, and making sure that things are taken care of in a timely manner. That just staying on top of those lists, whether it's through your facilities area, if that's external to your department, or internal, could also be with your IT area, if you, like us, have an external laundry vendor, or have an internal crew that is doing things like moving your furniture around and making sure that appliances are working well. You want to check with all of those different groups periodically to make sure that things are looking good and making sure that things are taken care of in a timely fashion and closed out so that the folks who put those requests in are made aware of them very quickly. You can see an example of our report here on the right. And a goal that we have for the future is to make sure that at the end of the year, folks are auditing things. If they are not complete, that we reprioritize those things with our partners in our facilities management area. We also want to make sure that our entry-level staff are aware that that familiarity with their facilities, as well as some of the special things that might happen generally over the summer with us, but it could be any time of the year, depending on your institution, that we want to make sure that they're aware of those things and how to respond and have a little bit more familiarity. So generally over the summer, we have an ability to do some hall renovations, and if there's a hall director of that area, we want to loop them in to make sure that they are able to talk both with us as well as with our contractor, architects if they're involved, about things that students are using, things that they're not. We want them to be involved in conversations about finishes in different facilities, different furniture, that sort of thing. So any sort of projects like that, if you have an ability to jump in, get a little bit more participation, we highly encourage that. There's also a variety of furniture installs that we want, to have some extra folks around to help us get things moved in and out in a timely fashion so things aren't sitting out in the snow and rain if the weather isn't cooperating. But also, I think that really gives folks an idea of the process from start to finish. Far too often, our entry-level hall staff really only sees furniture after it's been sitting in a room for years or months, and we want to make sure that those staff see what things look like when they're brand new, see it as it comes off the truck, and see the amount of care that we are taking to get it from the truck into the student's room or into a lounge, because we want our students and our staff to take just as much care of it as we do getting it from point A to point B. And finally, I think all of you know that emergencies will pop up, and we want to make sure that entry-level staff are able to see that, hey, we are sort of at an all-hands-on-deck situation. We have a photo here of one of our buildings flooding over this past summer, and that would be a great situation where we had a variety of staff, whether it was our summer conference assistants and desk assistants, hall directors, as well as folks more in the facilities realm, like Brad and myself. We're all there trying to take care of things and making sure that we got all that water out of our building and got things returned to normal as quickly as possible. So having some involvement in all of those things is really important.
You know it's going to be a bad day when you're seeing flooding on the outside of your building.
Yeah. Especially one that tall. That's one of our 17-story residence halls. So. Another thing that we have done, oftentimes our entry-level staff, our frontline staff are the ones that are really seeing things that could be improved, that need to be improved, but they don't always know how to articulate where things are happening, what needs to happen. And so we've developed a little bit of a process. Here it's an online form through our assessment software called Qualtrics that we have out there for our staff to be able to put in something if they're seeing an area that really needs a little bit more love, or they want to see a completely different use of that space go out there. So if somebody thinks that a front desk needs to be improved, or if they want to see a lounge kind of converted from a study area to more of a social area, that would be a great example of a way to do that. And they could give us that information, and then we can work with them to develop a little bit more of those things that we need to take a project from its conception to final implementation. Things like figuring out the scope of work, making sure that this is something that students want, figuring out who needs to be involved in those decision-making processes, and also developing some of those things like before and after photos, floor plans of what we're looking for. And so this is a process that we've developed at our campus to make sure that staff from the RA level on up to the director level have some insight into how to make things happen on our campus.
We've had the luxury as well of spending a little bit of time with a hall director. Let's say we're working on a new front desk, and that's a piece where we want to figure out function and form together. Those are pieces where Jed and I have worked a lot of front desks, but we'd also like to have that weigh in from the hall staff as well and say, here's what we're thinking, and what do you think about this from a location of where a data port may be to the layout for, working with a person with ADA accommodations, how we're going to be swiping cards, and, what's going to be the best flow for even a simple thing like a front desk. So those are pieces where we encourage you to be engaged with people on those things too. All right, the next one we're talking about here is custodial walkthroughs. So for us, our custodians are really important, and that's something where we want to make them feel important because they are eyes and ears in our buildings, and that's a piece where we really, really want to encourage you to utilize them in a fashion where you're able to communicate with them. We typically have a monthly sit down with a portion of our custodial staff. It might be the supervisor, it might be the lead, or it might be the custodian, the frontline custodian in the hall that actually has an official sit down. Now, there's times throughout the week where they're still going to run into each other, but that's a piece where we're saying we're going to have a scheduled time to sit down and make sure that you as a hall director are getting what you need, or the RA is noticing X and we need to step it up in a cleanliness fashion. We want to have that going both ways. We also love it whenever something happened the night before and the hall staff stayed up till 3 in the morning having people clean up from the shaving cream fight. But then in the morning, we have a note and we know that, hey, third floor is going to need a little extra TLC because there was the shaving cream fight, and we know where to focus our attempts right out of the gate there. And so it's a really symbiotic relationship here. And we really want to have even an RA know exactly what's going on in their community so that they're looking at that fire extinguisher, that they're saying, hey, this door doesn't close very well. It's not securing as well as it should. I've got, a whole bunch of lights that we have that may have 4 lamps in them. Meaning that there's, individual light bulbs that could be out. Well, if 1 or 2 of them are out, that's 1 or 2 too many. We want to get those repaired. So we want them to be observant in helping us in trying to find those sort of things. Anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think that's great.
All right, we'll keep trucking here. So leadership team inspections and punch lists. So you're going to see on the right-hand side a fine picture of one of the most photographed areas on our campus. This is a cupola on the top of one of our historic facilities. And you will see in the circled areas here, paint that is falling off of this thing. That's how it sits right now today. That's not okay. And so this is a piece where we saw it starting to bubble, and we brought it to the attention of our folks last year, but nothing was done. And so we said, you have got to get this addressed as soon as we're able to get warm enough weather to take care of this, because this is a focal point that people use as a point of pride, and it's a place where we need to do better. So this is part where we work with others on our campus that are not as in tune to some of these things, and we want to make sure that we're helping them to see through our eyes sometimes that it's important to take care of some of these little things. Building aesthetics, that's a piece where you'll need to establish, what's important there and how far are you going to go. For us, I'm a no detail, too small kind of person. If there's a black mark on a wall, if there's a little black spot on an electrical outlet, I want to know. I want to make sure those things are turned in. I don't want to take the chance that somebody gets bit by an electrical outlet that had a black mark on it already, and we didn't do anything about it. So the details are really, really important here. I don't know if we need to go to too much more detail, except that I see that I misspelled punch at the bottom there, so you don't need to call it out. There's no prizes for that. So, but yeah.
So we do have a question from Robert, who was asking a little bit about the structure of our departments. Specifically, they asked whether our custodians were employed by our departments, or is custodial and facilities centralized, and do we have any suggestions for working with custodial staff or facilities staff that are not housing and residence life staff members? So our custodial staff are a part of our housing department. However, the rest or the vast majority of the rest of our facilities team is not. And so as the kind of the primary point of contact for our facilities management, I think what I've found the most successful would be for the management staff, so foremen working with the various shops. I have found that having regular communication with them and an open dialogue is very helpful. Being able to pick up the phone and call them if something is not working the way that it ought to be is important to me. And then I think also anytime that we do meet, having sort of a catch-all time at the end to say, hey, I know we're meeting about this specific lounge that needs to be repainted, but is there anything else that while we're together you want to chat about? I found that a lot of our facility staff don't necessarily love meetings. They often feel like they're not the most valuable use of their time, but we've found that they really are helpful. And so I think when you have time that you've already set up with them, if something goes a little shorter than expected, using that extra time to make sure that you're checking in on other things can be very valuable. We have the luxury of having our custodial staff work within our department, so I don't know that we can speak as much to that, but I imagine that from a previous institution that some of those same things would work very well in terms of making sure that you have that regular communication. Thinking back to some of my MBA classes, communication is usually the first issue in any organization, so that would be certainly my suggestion there. And Robert, if you'd like a little bit more information about some of the things that we do on a weekly basis, monthly basis, so on and so forth with our facility staff to make sure that we are openly communicating, we'd be happy to share that one-on-one. So feel free to reach out in any way. So
the last thing that I'm going to hit on this page too before we move on is when we have projects and we're trying to do a renovation, an upgrade, or whatever it might be, we love for the hall staff to get their eyes on it. And Jed kind of alluded to this earlier here, but this is something where we love to have staff go through and do punch list with us to see what kind of level of detail we get into in terms of, all right, is that paint job acceptable? We're seeing a little streaking here, or it looks like they did a little touch up and it doesn't match the whole wall. It's kind of flashed. And so those are pieces where we love to have hall staff get their eyes on it with us, and they help us at the same time, but it's something where I think the perspective is really, really beneficial. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. So the next document here that you'll see is our All Shops walkthrough. So this is a piece that we are not, I don't think there's a lot of campuses that do it quite like what we do. But at the end of every academic year, every May, we go immediately through and we send every trade through every room, every apartment that is open. Now, we've got some apartments that do not open and so forth, but we spend some bucks on this to have what we call an All Shops walkthrough. And you can see on the form there, it's listed out by each of the different trades. They go through, they check everything that is their respective responsibility. They initial it and date it and sign it off. And if there's something that still wasn't right, they put some comments in there for things that we may need to come back and address later. This is something that we also do with our in-house custodians who are taking care of the cleaning, the floor care, our utility crew who's looking at appliances and furniture, anything like that. So we try and catch everything. And then sometimes there's just some quality control things that we say, all right, we've cleaned the carpet, but it's looking rough. There's some things that we probably need to look at, replacement of carpet in that particular room, or there's a stain or a bleach or something that we were unable to deal with. So really critical form. We put this out there, one for every single living unit that we have. That's usually pasted right on the door, and everybody signs off of it as we work methodically immediately after closing and before summer conferences hit. That's a massive expense for us, but it's a really important process that has worked really well for us as well. Anything else you want to hit on that?
I don't think so. So this is a goal that's, we have a little bit of this here on our campus, but we'd really love to expand it a little bit. Right now, our laundry vendor, Jets, has done a couple of short videos that have really helped to jazz up, for lack of a better way to put it, our student staff training, making things that are generally pretty dull and dry, like laundry rooms and their amenities, a little bit more fun for our student staff and our student staff training. You can actually see any of their videos there on that website. I would highly recommend the laundry room politics one if you're up for a good laugh. So we would also like to do a few more videos that are a little bit more direct for residents in terms of how to do common tasks. We have taken a cue from our colleagues at Ball State, and they've done things for raising and lowering a bed. We have a goal to develop one for how to clean out an oven, because we've seen sort of a large number of people who are saying that, oh my gosh, my oven just lit on fire, sort of things. And so making sure that people don't just feel like, oh, I can turn on that self-clean when it's full of grease and expect it to not start a large fire. So that's those are a few things that we're looking to develop in sort of in the early stages of. We also want to encourage our hall staff and our frontline staff to clean up where they can. This is just a small example of that. We've got quite a few TVs in our lounge spaces, and most of them have an access panel. You can sort of see an example of that in the lower left photo. But often our students aren't aware of those, or are, just kind of initially going through and pulling out cables from behind TVs to connect gaming systems or streaming devices or laptops to watch a movie or play a game with friends. And so we want to make sure that our hall staff are cleaning those things up, making sure that our first impression when you walk into a lounge or another facility is a good one, and looks a little bit more like that TV on the lower right than the one up top there with a mess of cables hanging out. And we also want to help to train our students to make sure that they're aware of, hey, if you need to connect your TV, here's how to do it, whether that's with a small sign on the interface panel or whether it's on the TV, just directing folks of how to get things done so that way they can use those amenities that we've already put out for our students.
This next one here is something that's kind of grown out of some fun things that have occurred. We have had what we call beautification days, where we have worked with volunteer groups. Sometimes it's student groups. We've actually done it with our Air National Guard, that they have some service days that they wanted to do some things, and so they worked with us in some plantings, and it now has become just part of our culture that we do some things to put potted plants out at a whole host of our entries, and so we spend a little extra time. It's doing something a little bit different than what everybody does every day. And it's something where we've kind of expanded a little bit more each year. And now this year we're going to get into some hanging pots as well. So, but having something to beautify our entrances, especially over the summer. And we have a whole host of guests, as most campuses do, of people who are here for summer conferences and people who are looking at the institution. And so it's nice to have a little something special out there. We take these away usually around late, usually it's in the October time. The plants are usually starting to struggle because it's getting colder out, and then we clean them out and we do it again the following May. But that's a piece that has been very well received, and people have said, I love it. And a couple of these don't show the color as well as they really should, but there's a pretty good pop of color that we put into each of those, so people get a chance to see something that looks fresh and green and a little bit lush right at the building entries there.
Yeah, to add a little bit more to what Brad was saying, these are all day one photos of our flowers. So they were, what you can't see is that there's our golf cart that we delivered them on right out of frame on all those photos. So I'll have to get around and take some photos a little bit more into our July timeline to see what they would look like afterwards, to kind of give you a day one and then later on in the summer. One thing I wanted to address quickly before we move into our next section is a question from Jenny about I believe it was about our all shops. Brad, I'll read it out, and if you want to kind of give a little bit more of an answer. She says, love that all team form for room inspections. Have you ever had any issues with privacy or billing, i.e., can all residents see what is listed on the form? And if so, is this ever a problem? So.
Yeah, and I may not have explained that very well. This is typically after everybody has left. And so it's a building, as people are leaving throughout the finals week, we may put one up on the door, and yeah, it's on the outside of a door, and that tells our trades that we're able to go ahead and hop into some of those rooms. We don't do a lot of jumping into rooms unless it's for something where, hey, we're going to put a staff member in this room immediately. We need to try and get this room clean so that they can move immediately out of their room, and it creates a little bit of that domino of moves. And I hope I'm understanding the question properly here, but with the things that are written on there, it's usually things about stuff that we need to do. It's more for the university to address. It's not something As people are checking out and there's something that they're billed for, that's a totally different process. So that's on the actual checkout, and that documentation is kept private. So people don't know that Jenny is going to be billed for XYZ. So this is more about how we are trying to make sure we get the place back into shape. You want to add anything to that?
Not necessarily related to that, but one thing I will point out is you may feel like we're being a little micromanagey if you look at the details of that form. We have for custodial staff as well as our floor care, which is also a custodial task, we have a time started and a time completed on there. That's something that we've actually implemented this year to help us better plan for how much time an individual building is going to take. We recognize that, sometimes a room is left really great by students and sometimes it is not. And so we want to make sure that we are allowing all of our custodial staff enough time at what is often our very busiest point of the year as they are cleaning for move out, as well as trying to prep for the onslaught of summer conferences that kind of comes up very quickly. So that's the reason that we have that information in there, just so we are able to get feedback year after year of what does a building of 50 people really take to clean versus what does another building that may have bathrooms in it take to clean. So we want to make sure that we're allowing enough time there. So that was something that kind of caught my eye as we came back to this slide.
Yeah, excellent point. And we use that for the production planning, and it really is beneficial for us to have an idea. We're doing it again this year because we're looking at a slightly different process in terms of how we're going to get things clean, looking at some external resources that we haven't used before. So that's going to change our timing a little bit. Okay, so this next part, this is where we really would love somebody to be sitting at your computer and weighing in at some of this. We'd love you to use the question tab there as a place to throw things out there. We're going to put some things on the screen where on the right-hand side of the screen, it will show the design of the room. We'll just pop it up there. This is the layout of the room as it was before. And so this is where we want you to closely look at it and, give some feedback of how might you improve this room. So this is something that was an older facility built back in, let's see, this was 68. So it's got a little bit of time in there, but you've got, as you may not be able to read terribly well, it's a built-in desk there that's at the very top of the picture there, or the very top of the drawing. So, and we'll scroll through a couple of pictures here, and we, at this point, would love for you to say, how would I improve that room? What would you do? So, bounce through. So this particular picture is used to be a kind of a servitor type of insert there. Used to actually have a working stove in there, and it does have a sink at that point and some shelving above, a little metal casework.
So Jenny's thrown out to cover up those cinder blocks.
I agree. Any way that you can get rid of your cinder blocks is a good thing if you can afford it. That's excellent. So the next picture that's on the screen here, that's a built-in wardrobe, and they've got 3 doors. They're all sliders there. And one of the other challenges with this is if you look at the top of the picture there, you will see that there's a fire sprinkler line that runs right through that closet. So, which obviously complicates things. All right, and then this is that built-in casework that we were talking about there. So you've got 2 desks on the outside and 3 sets of drawers in between for each of the 2 people who live in that room.
So if there's any other folks who have other thoughts on how they might change this room around a little bit, we'd love to hear some of those. And we'll have a few more examples of different spaces that we'd love to hear some of your thoughts and feelings on. But I think on this one, unless there's other questions or comments, anything like that, I think we will go to some of the things that we noticed.
So we've got these built-ins, and they were from way back in another era, and that's not something that students like anymore. We wanted to get rid of that furniture. It also really limited the layout of the room, of how a student could customize their room a little bit there. The rooms also, you know, you've got that big old wardrobe. I wanted to totally just pitch those and start over, but the complication with the line that was in there and the cost of trying to replace them did not allow us to replace it at this particular juncture here. You did notice maybe some wall shelves, if you want to go back a picture there. So those were attached up there. Students used them somewhat. Students said, I'd rather have a bookshelf that you know, is on the floor, so something that we're allowed to move around and use it to customize how we're laying out our room. The door, or the rooms themselves, you'll notice were fairly dark. The dark wood in there. There is actually a light at the very top above the window there that's behind, there we go, on that skirt that's way up there, and that had a light running all the way across it there. So pretty limited in lighting there too. You called out the cinder block walls. Oh, here we go. We've got more coming in from Jenny here. So remove the built-in desk dressers. Good job. Supply movable and loftable furniture. So absolutely. So those are pieces that we wanted to do. That little kitchenette thing that we had in there, that serves no purpose except for storage. So we said we could probably do something better with that space too. We'll show you what we did in just a few minutes here. And then the flooring itself, it was the VCT, and that's something that when you've got tile on the floor, it just makes it loud. And so it made it easy to clean, but it didn't allow for probably the quietest environment for our occupants in there. So, and then the bathrooms themselves, you probably can tell from the little drawing there, that is a shower that is round. So you literally would walk into the shower and kind of around a little bit of a corner there, and then they didn't have to have a shower door or anything on it. It was just something that would, it gave you privacy while you were in there, but it was an awkward shower at best. So we'll keep trucking.
So here's some of the things that we did, and we've kept a list up of the things that we were trying to address, and we were able to get quite a few of them. Brad, I think, has alluded to some of the things that we were not able to get done in our most recent renovation of this facility. But you can see that we have made sort of a half wall. That space is actually where that small kitchenette servitor area used to be, and that's made a nice nook for one of the students' desks in those rooms. You can also see that we've done some painting and a little bit of drywall, and where we were not able to cover up some cinder block, we were able to do at least a little bit of an accent painting to try to minimize the feel of those cinder blocks. You can also see that we were able to get rid of our built-in desk as well as our built-in dresser. From this photo, we added some underdressers that students are able to move around, use a little bit more in their own way. Yeah, they're stackable as well. They can step on them to get into bed. And then, of course, the desk with the chair there is visible.
We were able to put in a larger 48-inch wide desk, where before it was that long shared space all the way across the end of the room.
Here's a different view. We also added that bookshelf that Brad was mentioning a little bit earlier. Did a little bit of painting to just brighten up the whole space. Not a stark whites, but a little bit more of some yellow cream tones in there to kind of feel a little bit more like paints that are, popular in the, past the 1970s there. We also were able to do some things with our drapes. Our older drapes were a very rough, kind of canvasy feeling fabric, and were fairly translucent. Really what you think of when you think of residence hall drapes is sort of it meets fire code and covers the window so people can't see in, but that's about it. And we were able to upgrade to a very nice, it's a near blackout sort of drape in some of our facilities to give students a little bit more privacy, a little bit more control about how much light is coming in on those areas.
That's an interesting one as well, because we at first were saying, let's use a little bit more modern window covering or whatnot. we took this to students and said, what are you thinking? What would you like? And once they saw these drapes, they said, we love these. This is something where I want to take a nap in the middle of the day, I can do so. It gave total privacy, but allows us to have a good amount of light. We were really particular about having rods that would extend beyond the edge of the windows such that they can get full exposure of the window. The old ones really limited how far you could actually pull those drapes open. We also, without the built-in there, you can see people can actually get up to the window instead of, I've got to reach across a desk, or in the old case, a dresser, in order to try and open a window. And we said, we want to have people have access to their windows without having to climb over a piece of furniture.
Last thing I think that we want to point out is that we carpeted these rooms. Helped to quiet them down a little bit. This is actually our largest residential facility, about a little over 500 folks, 550. And so that really helps in this community, just to make it a little bit more quiet, let folks enjoy things in their room, but not necessarily enjoy things from 3 or 4 rooms down the hall. So
this next drawing shows a little bit of how this is really laid out, because it's got a bathroom in between two bedrooms now. And there is a door through each of the bathroom to get there, and there's also a door that's out near that outside wall on the window wall. There's a door in between that you can see those 2 bookcases. There's a door that actually goes in between those rooms. Oftentimes, students will say, no, I'm fine with just the privacy of just the 2 of us. We've had some people who said, let's bunk all 4 beds in one room. We're going to make the other room kind of the hangout space. But this is a little layout of the view of that room as it is. So we're going to keep on trucking here, and we're going to go to another.
Yeah, so this is side by side of what the kind of before and after. Common areas. So we've got a variety of eras of photos here, but here are some of our common spaces. You can actually see from the first 2 photos that that's actually the same room in multiple generations. And then we've got some other lounges here, some furniture there. We've got an area that's sort of a game room lounge set up with a few pool tables and a foosball table. We've got a nice different view of that lounge with some furniture, a large screen TV that kind of gives away the date of the photo, and then a different view actually of the same lounge with a little bit more modern TV there mounted on the wall. So any thoughts on how you all might improve some of those spaces?
We're going to have to do this really quickly, but we'd love to have some quick thoughts on how you dress up what we're showing you here.
All right, we'll show our hand a little bit here. So in our common areas, here's some things that we noticed. We had some very heavy, uncomfortable furniture that wasn't easy to move, so that way folks couldn't take it into the room, but it really also wasn't very multi-purposeful. We didn't have a lot of decorations. You see a lot of stark white walls without a whole lot up there. Some carpet issues as well. Not a whole lot of amenities in some of those spaces. They are just TV lounges or just game rooms, sort of a thing, and not a mixed-use space depending on who's there and who might want to use it. A lot of mismatched furniture. You can see that end table doesn't match the couches at all in color or in style. We've got also some lighting that we blocked off with some drapes. We aren't letting that natural light in. We get quite a few days of sunshine here in Colorado, so want to let some of that in. Sometimes those TVs feel haphazardly placed, like they were just kind of rolled that way from the last person who used it. And we also noticed that we want spaces where students can study and have fun at the same time. So here is what we did on some of our common areas.
We're going to scroll through these pretty quickly, but that is one of the same rooms that you saw before there, and now we've put color and intentionality in the layout and matching furniture, and off the right there you can't terribly tell, but we put a kitchen off to the side. Try to make these just a lot more welcoming, a little bit of the wainscot in there to dress it up a little bit as well. We're going to keep trucking here. So This next lounge is a lounge that was built for a residence hall in 1957, and it just brightened it up so much. We are not covering up those beautiful windows. We'd like to have, furniture that all really works together in there. This particular area has our performing and visual arts school students who typically will live there, so we've got a piano. You'll notice that piano is actually on a dolly. That piano moves around. They use it they'll bring it out into the lobby sometimes. There's different uses for that, and we're trying to protect the legs on that so that they have a little bit of flexibility as well.
Yeah. What you can't see on that photo is also we've got a few tables just to the far left of the photo where folks will often study if they want more of a table setup, and then also we've got some more soft seating for folks to be able to study at as well. Here is more of our kind of multi-purpose game rooms. We've got a poker table, a pool table. We've done a little bit of decoration with some of those pool tables to kind of class those up, pull in a little bit more of that. And one thing that Nina added that I think I just highlighted but wanted to point out is that they said that they would probably add some tables to the room with the TV so students can have a place essentially to work and study, things like that. Or even to play some tabletop games. And so that is something that, yes, absolutely we did. Again, we've got some bar height tables here in this photo that you can currently see, as well as off to the left of it and out of frame, we have more of a six-top table if folks wanted to do more of a sit-down game or do some studying. We also added some amenities. This is, I think, one of the things that people find the most shocking about some of our residence halls is that we've added photos, we've added some kind of knickknacks, for lack of a better way to put it, and things that generally don't really get messed with too much by students. We find that if we are keeping things out there and up to date, if something is broken, it gets removed and repaired or removed and replaced pretty quickly, and folks don't really mess with a lot of those things. So you can see we've got photos out there, we've got vases, we've got books in some areas, quite a few different things.
And we're probably going to go ahead and wrap it up. We'll bounce through one more slide here. We threw a number of things on here because we wanted it to be a resource. We even put some bonus material at the very end of this particular presentation too, but showing you before and after sometimes is helpful. But if anybody would like to take a look at that or have other questions, we've reworked laundry rooms and kitchens and front desks and mail rooms and all kinds of things. So game rooms. But these are all pieces that we have found very helpful to try and make it a more usable space here. So John Merchant says, how many years and cycles do you expect to get out of your furniture, game tables? Do you recover furniture or just buy new? Great questions, John. We're buying furniture that we expect to last a while, and we're buying residence hall quality furniture that will last. A lot of the furniture that you're seeing in here, the new pieces that we've put in, is sustainable furniture. It is something where we've been buying from Transformations, and Transformations has a furniture that if an arm is cut, somebody marks on it and you can't get it off, you can just replace one arm cover. You don't have to replace the whole thing. We typically buy extra fabric so that we can say, hey, we'll send it into the factory and say, make us one arm here, and they can make it and shoot it back to us within a few days. And so that's been phenomenally helpful. We also realize that some things will just ugly out over time. It may not even wear out. And oftentimes with that furniture, we're on our second generation on a number of the recovers of those pieces of furniture. So that's not going to a landfill. We're just throwing off the cover off of it, put a new cover on, make it nice and tight, and we're ready to go again. So anyway, great question there, John. I'm sure we could get into more, but I think our time is pretty well spent here. And so I think with that, we'll see if there's any last questions that you want to shoot our way. Want to add anything else to that?
I guess one extra thing that John had asked was specifically about our game tables. We have seen on specifically our poker tables, We've had to do a little bit more work on some of those. That was something that there's just not a whole lot of great options out there in terms of commercial grade things that are going to last. So we've really tried to keep up with maintenance issues on those. We initially started with more of a rolly kind of chair that you can see in this photo, and eventually had to swap that out for a more commercial grade chair from one of our vendors, Solder, to kind of accommodate those needs. In terms of our pool tables, we do and budget for an annual recovering, reaffixing of pockets that may have come off, other things like that. We budget for a few a year. We have, I want to say maybe, I'm spitballing, 8 tables out there, and we try to make sure that we're hitting at least 4 of them a year. We also really work with our students. A lot of our pool tables are in monitored areas, whether they're within view of a front desk or in an area that we happen to have a camera in, to make sure that folks aren't trying to move those tables, perhaps breaking legs on them, breaking the slate underneath the pool table surface, that sort of thing. So those are some of the things that we do specifically with those game tables. So,
Corinne, would you like us to cover anything else?
Might be Shadeen now.
Might be Shadeen, yeah.
Yeah, it's Shadeen back on the call. Thank you very much for your guys' presentation today. It's been very insightful, especially for a small campus like mine, getting some ideas of even just the little things that we can do with a limited budget. So thank you so much for taking the time to put together this information and sharing it with the region. I would like to remind everybody on the webinar today, we do have another webinar next month, so please be making sure that you're touching base with the aimho.org website often for upcoming webinars. And should you or you know of anybody that would like to present for the AIMHO region, please feel free to let us know or submit the request online through the aimho.org website. Again, a big thank you to our presenters today for taking the time to put together this session and share their knowledge with us in the region. It's been very insightful. So thank you guys, and everybody have a very nice day.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate all the engagement too. The questions and comments were much appreciated. Let us know if we can assist in any other way. Bye-bye.